Hello, everyone. My name is Dawn, and welcome to another episode of The Chamber Within. As I said before, I'm an extremely pensive person, to the point where someone who's in my company might mistake my silence for me purposely distancing myself, but truly it's just me processing my own thoughts. And what I was thinking about lately, um, have you ever wondered about the meaning of your life? I can remember growing up hearing that so many times in movies and on TV shows, and it just kept coming up. And maybe that was just, the focus of the time, creative writers repeating themselves. But I didn't care because I was young and figuring out life. But as I got older, that question resurfaced. And here's what my response to this question is, without regurgitating what I've read from my library of spiritual books. This is my true to life response about the meaning of our lives. I feel like the meaning of life is whatever we give it, whatever we are focusing on. That meaning has changed so many times for me over the decades that this is my conclusion. It feels separate from the meaning of all life. I think that's a grander query, but as far as our own lives, the purpose, the drive, the reason, or not caring at all extends from who we are as a person, coupled so heavily with how we think people see us. This is why I say my perspective on the meaning of my life has changed over time. When I was younger, my meaning was to please my parents. As far as my grades went, my behaviors, of course, at school, as long as I did the right thing, I was doing my job. That was the meaning of my life. Yeah, I was able to enjoy my free time with my friends. And I know this because I remember when it shifted. It shifted when my mother died because I didn't know how to measure the acts of my life. I had nothing to weigh who I was up against. There were expectations that just went away because that person went away. There was no person to speak to about decisions I was making, no one to bounce the thoughts I had off of, thoughts I'd been wrestling with, no sounding board, no feedback. She was a good listener. My dad was great at speaking, so he lectured me ad nauseum. One time, literally, I got nauseous because he just would not stop talking. We're standing up, and he just kept going on and on. I was just like, I can't do this. I had to sit down. Um, so while I had both parents, I just had that one great listener. And, meaning isn't necessarily discovered all at once. It can be assigned and reassigned throughout a lifetime. The meaning of my life has shifted time and again, depending on where I was, my age, um, where I worked, when I got married, became a mother, so on and so forth. We tend to apply so much pressure on our lives, trying to be what we think we need to, when really it's all in our heads. It's a silent struggle because we all do it, but no one is saying it out loud. I've always admired the rebellious personality, not the kind that caused trouble for the sake of getting attention or just for the sake of being problematic, the kind that was authentic to themselves, regardless of what societal standards were, that they did what they desired and acted on their passions, regardless of what anyone would have thought. And I say this because I would see, um, and I know this is different, but teen idols and pop stars, they would sing and do things. I'm like, oh my God, their mother's watching. And I was just like, man, that's really brave because I'm sure in the background, maybe their parents are thinking, I didn't know this was who you were really. You know, the judgment is, I guess, the fear. They seem to be so much more comfortable in their skin than people who went along to get along. Like rock stars doing the wildest stuff, but everyone's just like, yeah, this is great. But people in the community, even regular people who went against the grain. And I bet if you thought about it, you can think of maybe one or two people because it's not common to live freely what you want to do and how you want to live your life. I mean, how freeing is it to live the life you want, regardless of not just what others think, but you, your toughest critic? Am I good enough? Am I smart enough? Am I capable? The good news is that we get to define and redefine this meaning and purpose over and again. There are some people who have multiple careers and others who have been in the same field their entire lives. In the United States, what you do for a living is heavily weighted by other people. What do you do is a common icebreaker when you're mingling at a party to gauge your status, perhaps the level of respect you deserve, and ultimately, who do you know that might be beneficial for them? Should you be kept in their contacts or discarded at the party so that they can mingle with more important people? And if you have the fortitude to not care, then you're halfway there. If you can sleep peacefully at night and be enticed to get up because your purpose, your meaning, whatever that is, drives you, then you know very well that meaning is what you say it is. Your importance was already self assigned. You are worthy to be in any room at any given time because you said so. You think so. You feel so. Additionally, seeing where you are now as a phase and not a permanent state of being releases the attachment of what you think you should be, what you should have, where you should live, because this can all change at a moment's notice. Meaning changes with knowledge and understanding. I finally got that because we're all changing. We're learning the things that the previous versions of ourselves didn't know. Of course, things that we value, that we pursue, and assign importance to changes with us. The meaning of my life now is hard to put into words, but I'll try. Uh, Currently, I enjoy building, creating. This podcast means a lot to me because for someone who has enjoyed writing my own thoughts down, I wasn't ever consistent with keeping a journal. I bought journals, they're mostly empty because I wasn't consistent. I wasn't usually good with sharing my most inner thoughts, let alone communicated them. Not until later in life, anyway. I was the listener. I was the soft place to land, but now my meaning is to share what I know when asked. The building and creating is the chamber within. I want to see where this all goes, how far I can take it until I say, I'm done. That was nice. And find a new meaning. I had a fascination with plants during the pandemic, a passion for creating blankets when I learned how to crochet. But this feels different. This uh, meaning, this purpose, this excitement. It's different because I'm sharing nuggets, I guess, nuggets of wisdom that were sometimes a difficult challenge that I had to learn through. It's something that I do for people. I'm not growing plants for myself or making blankets. I'm doing this because sharing what I learn with humans I won't meet, I don't know. It's pretty exciting. Not so much documenting a list of struggles, but a collection of lessons that I know aren't specific to me alone. I lived something, I thought about it, I learned from it. Maybe what I learned could help you think about your own life differently, but that's my meaning, and I'm enjoying the ride so far. I love it when people share their nuggets of wisdom, and I'm like, it's a perspective. I didn't know that, or I didn't see it that way. So that's what I do right now as a way to give my life meaning. What meaning have you assigned to your life? I'd love to hear it. You can share it with me at thechamberwithin@yahoo.com. Or instead of leaving an email, you can leave me a voice message at speakpipe.com/, the chamber voice line. Thank you for joining me this week. I hope you have a wonderful week ahead, and I'll talk to you later. Bye bye.